Karoline Leavitt, she's bringing receipts, okay? She comes into the press conference now, and she had been dealing with reporters saying, well, how do we know? How do we know? How do we know? After she said, oh, you've got $2 million going to sex change operations in Guatemala, and you've got tens of thousands of dollars going to trans comic books in Peru. You got a DEI musical in Ireland, a trans opera in Colombia. And they're like, well, how do we know? How do we know? How do we really, really, really know? And she came forward with something, shall we say. She came forward with actual proof. And I have a feeling there's going to be a whole lot more of this. You know why? Doge is coming out with a brand new website. You can go and check it out right now at doge.gov. They're coming out with a brand new website. You know what that website's going to have in it? All of the receipts. Okay, so they're not messing around. They're very, very serious about getting all of this stuff done. And you combine somebody like Donald Trump with the ability, if you would, from a technological perspective of one Elon Musk, and I'm telling you, we are in for it. We are in for it. They're talking about blowing open Medicare, for example. They're talking about blowing open the IRS. That's another biggie, for example. Pete Hegseth ordering an audit there at the Pentagon. This is stuff that Democrats and Republicans, both parties, have talked about forever. Nobody's actually done it. And then you get this team doing this. Here's Karoline with the prep.
Well, I want to say that actually tariffs are good. Tariffs are great, actually. And the problem is we didn't charge them and everyone else did. They charged us, but we didn't charge them because we were generous or foolish or stupid or all of the above. So this is one of the biggest, I think, economic bills ever signed. I think it's probably the biggest in terms of what it represents. Now, this doesn't include what we did a few days ago with steel and aluminum. That's over and above this. Cars will be over and above this. Look at what's coming shortly. If you take a look at the chips and the various things in that world, that universe, that'll be over and above it. Also, pharmaceuticals will be over and above.
Boom. Okay, again, just from the press conference moments ago, just wrapping up there, and he's talking about the importance of tariffs and having reciprocal tariffs, because you know what, if you go around the world, everybody else is charging us tariffs, but we never charge anybody else tariffs. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. But first, as I said, you know what, this young woman, this young mother, Karoline Leavitt, she's coming to the party, and you know what, she's got receipts, okay? She is serious. Like, they're like, well, how is it that you really know that there's $2 million going to sex change operations in Guatemala? Or how do you know that tens of thousands of dollars went to the trans opera in Colombia or the DEI musical in Ireland? And she's like, oh yeah, here's how I know. I've got it all. I got copies for all of you. Here we go. Karoline Leavitt.
Before it was Elon Musk making our government efficient and accountable, it was some unnamed bureaucrat that none of you knew. Elon Musk is the richest man in the world. He's also now one of the most highly scrutinized men in the world alongside President Trump because of what he's doing and the access that he is allowing. So there's great transparency. As for the actual receipts, we are happy to provide them, and I actually brought some today because all of you know I love to bring the receipts. We have contracts upon contracts that we can send and provide this information to you. Let me be very clear. We are not trying to hide anything. We have been incredibly transparent, and we will continue to be. These are screenshots of contracts that Doge found across our government. This is a DEI contract, $36,000 for U.S. citizenship and immigration services. That is against the president's policies and his America First agenda. This is a $3.4 million contract, a Council for Inclusive Innovation at the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, Department of Commerce, another DEI contract that Doge identified. I can continue to go through these. Oh, I love this one, $57,000 for climate change in Sri Lanka. What is this doing to continue the interests of the American people? Absolutely nothing. These are the line items across the federal government that Doge is identifying daily. They're moving very fast. There's a lot of paper that we can show you, but we're happy to do it. This administration has been more than transparent about what Doge is doing. And here's one of their tweets that they posted about the mine. I believe this is in Pennsylvania, where the federal employee retirement system is being processed. Did anybody know this was even happening in our country before Elon Musk talked about it in the Oval Office yesterday? A lot of Americans didn't. So we are providing transparency and accessibility on a daily basis when it comes to Doge. And I also have a Doge daily report, if anybody would like it, on all of the things that they are identifying and finding. We're happy to provide this information to you. We're talking about it every single day.
Amazing, right? Amazing. And now they're coming out with a brand new website, Doge.gov, and it's all going to be there. Like, we're getting real transparency. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Like, this is what they've talked about for years. I was looking at some old tape earlier today of Al Gore and Bill Clinton talking about, they're going to do all this good stuff. I looked at some with Obama too. They're going to get rid of all the fat and waste in the government. But you know what? Nobody ever did it. Instead, we've just been ballooning bigger and bigger and bigger over the years. And I got to tell you, over the last 4 years, holy moly, my gosh, some of the things that are coming up, $52 million going to Associated Press. What? I mean, over $50 million going to the New York Times. Come on. $8.2 million going to Politico for all those Political Pro subscriptions, so all those bureaucrats could pay $10,000 a year of your taxpayer money to go to those things. And then this DEI nonsense, or I could just call it crap, right? All over the world. All over the world. Like, what is that about? Like, why are they pushing this agenda? I mean, it's bad enough here at home. Why were they doing it all over the world? Why was it so important to have DEI initiatives in Serbia or transgender operations that we're paying for as taxpayers in Guatemala? Like, why is that important? I ask you, because you know what? I really still don't know the answers to that. We've talked about maybe it's because, they got to employ all their transgender PhD students that they're graduating from these mills, right? These factories of academia, and they got to find some place for them to work. But I'm really troubled by this. I don't understand the point of trying to re-engineer society in such a really heinous way. And let's face it, it's heinous. When you're saying, okay, it's perfectly fine that a boy who was born a boy gets to run or swim in the same race with someone who's never had, let's face it, the testosterone. You can't take the drugs, right? You can't take testosterone and compete in these races. So why would you allow somebody who obviously had most of their life with a whole lot more testosterone than the young woman? I mean, it's bonkers. And more and more and more of this is coming out. It's why Trump wants to get rid of the Department of Education. What good is it doing us? What good is any of this doing us? I mean, they have no explanation. She's got the receipts now. They can't sit there and say, oh, it's not really happening. And when this comes up, what do they got?
Factually accurate. He's talking about luxury hotels. I'm not as big. Look, I was in Hurricane Katrina. I saw what FEMA does.
I think the issue, too, is these are congressionally appropriated funds. I think you and I as conservatives could look for a lot of things in the federal budget we would be more than happy to see done away with. But I think that there have been things that have been presented as one thing and then turn out to be something that very different. The condoms to Gaza, the first time I heard that stated, I knew that wasn't true. It doesn't take an expert to know that we're not doing that. And then we've got this example of Politico allegedly spending $8 million. That just simply wasn't true. So I think what people want is, yes, it's fine to tweet it out, but explain why we're cutting it, what it is, and if it's taking away a good or a service from the public, what is backfilling?
I just got to jump in because the 8.2 million, she's wrong on that. That actually is true. And we have the receipts on that. I've been showing you the receipts on this one. They were paying, they're saying, oh, it was no big deal because, they were paying for Political Pro subscriptions. Well, it's fascinating how the 8.2 million all happened for those Political Pro subscriptions. What do you do in 2024? Man, oh man. I mean, they jumped up their spending in 2020, if you look at that yellow line. And by 2024, wow, boy, they sure had an agenda, did they not? You know what this was? These were like zombie subscriptions. Basically, you pay 10 grand, ladies and gentlemen, and you get a subscription to Political Pro. And nobody can complain about it because, it's Political Pro. And maybe you need that to do your job. Let me tell you, you don't. And everybody's come forward now. Well, many people have come forward and said, I never even knew that I had this subscription. I never even knew about it. So before the woman on CNN, who actually happens to also be on The View, starts telling you that garbage, I want you to remember that actually it really and truly is true. But let's pick up where we left off, shall we? We're going to pick up where we left off because when I tell you this is all they got, really and truly this is all they got. Anderson Cooper has to get down in the gutter.
That people aren't going to be losing something they need.
And I'll just add, I give him credit for this. He said, look, we're going to make mistakes. He said, we're not going to bat 1,000 here. We're going to make mistakes. And
Ooh, okay. we got to get the best part. We got to get the best part, right? Let's get the very, very best part because, like I said,
that impact Americans, and it gives him some.
Okay.
It's not transparency to say things that have no factual background. I mean, to say we're cutting, we've found $1 billion or $1 trillion in waste with no specifics, that's just talk. That's not transparency. It's 23 days in here, guys. 23 days. You're talking about 2.3 billion that was saved last year. These guys are saving 2.3 billion a day.
Right, but
it's incredible. That's what they're saying. But where's the proof? You're waiting. You're not going to be satisfied till he shows up with 10,000 pages.
But you're talking about 10,000 pages. Yeah. He's giving very specific things,
yes, but
he's not actually giving any evidence of that.
It's all going to come because what they also said was, if we have to go to Congress, we'll go to Congress.
Right, but
we'll show where it is.
Some of the details that have come out, like the $59 million spent on luxury hotels, it's actually not.
You're talking about the FEMA money that was abused for migrants.
Yeah.
FEMA money for migrants, that's okay now?
No, I'm not saying it's okay. I'm not saying it's okay. Don't put words in my mouth.
So would you stop that? Would you stop that process?
Don't be a dick. The portrayal, what I'm saying is the portrayal.
Like that's where he goes. Don't be I'm sorry. Like this is what it has basically evolved into because they got nothing. And they're so scared for some reason of everybody finding out just exactly where all this money went. They're so scared. That's what they have to do, the name calling. I mean, there's tons of it. We've been watching it all over the air for the last 48 hours or even longer. They are flipping out, you guys, because it's all getting exposed. And isn't it great? I mean, like, it's really, really, really great. The IRS is about to get exposed. Donald Trump just talking about this moments ago in a press conference. Yikes.
Workers arrived today, Gavin Clagger and others arrived today at the IRS. Do you expect to close the IRS, or what are you expecting?
No, I don't expect it, but I think that the Internal Revenue Service will be looked at like everybody else. Just about everybody's going to be looked at. So it's they're doing a hell of a job. It's an amazing job they're doing, and that force is building. I call it the force of super geniuses. But it's building. And, they go up and they talk to some of the people about certain deals, and the people get all tongue-tied. They can't talk because these people get it. They're very smart people. We need smart people, yes.
So it's pretty good. Everybody's going to get looked at. The IRS has some stuff that maybe should be looked at. I'm thinking about, we can go back to the Lois Lerner days and the fact that conservative Tea Party groups were being targeted by Obama's IRS. We can go back to that. We can go back to, just recently, right? Matt Taibbi, when he was going to testify. This is a reporter who he used to work for Rolling Stone. I always assumed he was pretty left, but he's gotten increasingly right too, like everybody, right? Because if you're just a normal person, I guess you're on the right now. So Matt Taibbi had the IRS show up at his doorstep the day he was supposed to testify about the Twitter files. The Twitter files basically were exposing, he got his hands on it, I guess Elon gave it to him, all of the State Department's information vis-a-vis how they were trying to manipulate what was going on Twitter, right? So they had their agenda, and there was all this back and forth between the State Department and the Twitter employees, now X. Think about that. Like, it's amazing. If we didn't have X, I don't think all this stuff would be coming out. I really don't, because it was like a game of whack-a-mole. They were shutting everything down over and over and over and over again, and people were losing all trust and all faith in the government. And I got to tell you, when you lose that, you've lost it all. Elon articulating that this week so well.
If there's not a good feedback loop from the people to the government, and if you have rule of the bureaucrat, if the bureaucracy is in charge, and then what meaning does democracy actually have? If the people cannot vote and have their will be decided by their elected representatives in the form of the president and the Senate and the House, then we don't live in a democracy. We live in a bureaucracy. So it's incredibly important that we close that feedback loop, we fix that feedback loop, and that the public's elected representatives, the President, the House, and the Senate, decide what happened.
I mean, for the people, by the people, right? Like, the people should have some say. Well, they don't like that. over there in Democrat land. I'm kind of wondering, what is it that they're so afraid of that's going to get exposed? You got to wonder, right? Hey, you know what? If you're watching the markets went up today. Markets actually really like Donald Trump, really, really like Donald Trump. So it's a good time to be investing in the markets, if you would. Go check out our model portfolios at 76research.com. Model portfolios, we get 3 of them. If you want to just sort of, go in lightly, you can use code word dollar and get the 76 report. It's just $1 a month for the first 2 months. Code word dollar, DOLLAR. This is my research company that I started with a very dear friend who spent decades on Wall Street running billions of dollars. And listen, there's a lot of opportunity out there right now because this president is doing things that you just haven't seen before. I mean, just look at our portfolio, for example, all of these numbers showing that, all of them, American Resilience, Income Builder, and Inflation Protection, all doing extraordinarily well, and better, of course, than the S&P, because that's the goal, right? You want to be beating the S&P. So go check those out. Go look at those model portfolios on 76 Research.